Hello, everyone. This is Professor Hamamoto. It is September 30th, 2021, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I welcome you here today for the talk that I'll be presenting. When I say present, it's going to be more informal today. I'm just giving a talk, and I vowed today to pay more attention to the live chat here. I apologize for it's not intentionally trying to ignore you, but I get really focused on the material that I prepare and share with you. But today, the nature of the topic itself lends to discussion and back and forth. And many of you in the chat room are fairly well, I assume, acquainted with the literature. And I'm interested in getting your insights and observations as well. And as you can see by the description on the YouTube um, schedule there. I'm going to be talking about two authors. Originally, I just said I was going to talk about Thomas R. Horn. Then it dawned on me that two of the most important recent books by Thomas Horn were co-authored by Cris Putnam. So I wanted to include him there because he deserves an incredible degree of gratitude for the reader and for the larger public for the knowledge and the insight and the analytical skill that he brings to Thomas R. Horn, who is, of course, far more widely known and more established than Cris Putnam. And I understand that Cris Putnam passed away. I don't know when it was. So he is no longer with us. He is with Jesus, and I assume he was Christian, like Thomas Horn. That's why I say he's with Jesus. And I don't mean it in any sort of disparaging way. I mean, this is how I hear Christians and other co-religionists speak of people who are departed. And I'm trying to get away from using euphemisms like passed away or past. Maybe past is good. Passed away. But there you go. But so anyway, the point is Thomas Horn, Cris Putnam, an incredible duo. For two of the three books, I might not even get to the second or the third book if I hold true to my promise here of sticking with the live chat. And speaking of which, before I get into it, I'll like to welcome Kathy Sue as a moderator. Corky Goss and Biomancer Perspective is here. Hey, Tyrone Sargent, how are you? ECAT, hi. And Ayape, Marine 5, hi. Salsa Norma, thank you for being here. And I'm going to be on the show with John O'Laughlin today, the Thursday night trio. I think George is in transit, so he may not be joining us, or he might call in, touch base. I don't know. But just to tell you, I'm going to be just giving a very short, because I know there's an express interest in health issues, and I'm not going to preach on health or talk about health in any depth, but I'm just going to share with you a regimen. It's not even a regimen. It's just sort of, and that's the beauty of it. It doesn't really require much thought or imagination. It just requires a little bit of information, but I'm going to be sharing that little health secret with you at an hour, 2 hours from now, 5 o'clock Pacific time, 3 o'clock. Most of you here in the chat room know the show, and you know the schedule. So I'll be doing that, and we'll be talking about some books and readings and new areas of investigation on top of complementary insights that we are able to share using this platform with one another. So today, I'm going to talk about the how this is, to me, in a nutshell, right, in one sentence, what I think the singular strength of Tom Horn and Cris Putnam might be. And that is their ability to bring together seemingly disparate streams or tributaries, that's why I call it a confluence, that are in the political realm, in the culture realm, and importantly, the realm of religion, whether organized religion or just sort of common sense, popular religion. But Horn and Putnam do a really good job. I can't think of a writer or writers that do a better job than themselves. I'm always looking for them, and some people get pretty close. Of course, it's not really fair to compare one writer to another, because each individual has a different approach and a different area or areas of expertise. And speaking of which, Thomas Horn, and I'm not really sure what Cris Putnam's area. I think he's a little bit younger, but I'm familiar with Thomas Horn's work going back a number of years, right, before this. And he also has a presence on YouTube, so you get to see him all out there. I'm sure you know that. And I think he's either produced and appeared in, or maybe even wrote 2, 3, 4, maybe more documentaries that sometimes you see available on YouTube, or I think I have purchased 2 or 3 or 4 DVDs of Tom Horn. So I'm familiar with his work. And I was very, very impressed when he started his collaboration with Cris Putnam, because I went out and bought the book just on the basis of this sensational title, right? Petrus Romanus. I think that's how it's pronounced. Petrus Romanus, or Petrus Romanus. Forgive my Latin. I never studied Latin. I should have. And of course, the provocative subtitle, "The Final Pope is Here." My gosh, got to get that one. That's 2012, and published by Defender out of Crane, Missouri. It's only $19.90. It's $20. Get this book. It's over 500 pages. And get this one too while it's still available. And get the George Webb book, because I have that on order. I saw it there in the shopping page, and which is really nice. It's the way the whole business is kind of coming together, and it makes it easier. And I'm getting notifications by email whenever they take down the channel, so it's a lot easier, even though it's a hassle. But I can get there, and I can watch along with you. And oh yes, I also ordered John O'Loughlin's book, right? It's Macduff. Macduff Lives. And this is, I think, the final revised version. It's available on the retailer that ate the world. You know who I'm talking about. I haven't gotten it yet. I ordered it, right after he announced it. But I think there's like a 10-day to 2-week delivery date. It's kind of unusual for the retailer that ate the world. Sometimes you just think about a book, or you order it, and then, like, you hear the doorbell and the book's right there. They're very quick. But anyway, I'll be patient in both cases. And well, anyway, I won't tell you about my own my own creative efforts. I don't like to talk about what's coming up too much, because it takes the energy out of it, and it's also a jinx. I think I'm superstitious in that way. So you know it's part of the current, right? You don't even have to be religious. You don't even have to subscribe to any one set of organized or disorganized religious beliefs. But I don't think anybody can really dispute the fact that religiosity and issues of the soul and the spirit are very much with us today, especially in this time of crisis. And it's been building over the past several years. And any number of examples from any number of different religious traditions. Today, we're going to talk primarily about the Protestant perspective that Cris Putnam and Thomas Horn, I won't say they represent it, but they come from that. And I don't think they would either claim to represent anybody's thoughts except for their own, but they come out of the Protestant tradition. Is obvious. And by the way, one of the parts, the aspects of the books that they have is that although they are rooted in Protestant theology and religiosity and the spiritual and the political tradition, because after all, Protestant means protest, right? Protest against the prevailing, not just theological, religious, institutional order, but the political order. Because at one point, in the case of Luther, you had the fusion of state and church, and it was very difficult to break that, to prise that apart, PRISE, to separate it. And, we wouldn't have been able to have the American Republic until that process had been thought about, workshopped, and demonstrated to be a highly effective mode of governance for human beings, you and me. And we can't take that for granted. And of course, Putnam and Horn both explicitly write about the separation between church and state. And I mention this is because part of the implications of their recent writings, and when I say recent, 2012 is recent to me, um, is because we've had a coming together. We have currently, we are seeing the really devastating effects of the fusions between religion, government, and corporations and the military. It's called corporatism. We've been down this road before, but now there's a technological techno edge to it that makes that combination even more potent, lethal, and difficult to overcome. But we can overcome it. That's the good news. And I won't speak for either Putnam or Horn and Putnam, but reading their books, I have a very strong sense of, and the people they cite, I have a very strong sense that we shall overcome this current crisis, because they have a historical perspective that goes back, 2 millennia, centuries and centuries, and a lot of problems are the same, and they're rooted in the same dark forces, Luciferian, to be specific about it. Okay, let me take a breath here and see if anybody has a comment here. Oh yeah, someone mentioned Bozos. He's expanding again. What else did he buy? Pretty soon he'll be buying all the Q codes that people have subscribed to. And well, you know the story. We're already owned at birth, right? Our birth certificate, marriage, and I heard recently even divorce documents are sold. So we're human cattle. We're truly human resources. And Biomancer says the intellectual quotient, IQ, yeah, is, to emotional quotient, EQ, emotional quotient, is to spiritual quotient. Yeah, what you're saying is that they're out of whack and out of alignment. Yeah, I agree. And, balance is what it's all about. The 7 cardinal virtues versus the 7 deadly sins. Spirituality, karma, quality of life. This is Harry Honkanen or Honkanen. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. Is that a Finnish name? I think it's Finnish. Yes. Thank you. Welcome. Yeah, the 7 deadly sins. That speaking of Christianity, right? They're constant, and we're being slammed really hard. U.S. Post Office slowing first class mail, even for Amazon. Okay, good. I'm glad I got my library together. In fact, I bought a new bookcase and I said, hey, I have all these Tom Horn books all in one place. I think this is a talk for me. This is like when I was reorganizing my books here. I said, this is a sign that I have to talk about Horn because I've been really wanting to for quite a while. Oh, but I forgot, by the way. I just want to tell you, I'm working on doing a talk on Scott Peterson. If you remember my Patreon, I put a MP3 out there. It's about a 20-minute deal. I think it's from the foreword, I think, or the first chapter from a book by Scott Peterson's last known mistress, because he had many of them. Even while he was married to his wife. In fact, his wife, Lacey, Lacey, her maiden name is Roca or Rocha. I don't know how she pronounced it, Portuguese, from Central California, I believe. Lacey, his wife, was pregnant, 8 months pregnant with their son, Connor. And Amber, he was, having this affair with Amber Fry. Okay. So I read a little bit about that. I think I'm going to read a little bit more and post it so that we can listen on Saturday and Sunday when there's less programming going on. And so I said, hey, I'm going to probe more deeply into the Scott Peterson case because, I'm into true crime, like a lot of you are too. I'm into the whole true crime genre. I've been doing it for years, decades, even. First as a hobbyist and then professionally. So I'm going to be reading this book, which I acquired recently. It's a pretty hefty, comprehensive book. It's by Catherine Cryer. I think she's an attorney. I think she was even a judge by profession before she went into true crime writing. So, A Deadly Game, The Untold Story of the Scott Peterson Investigation. And of course, by the title, you can know it's going to focus on a different aspect of the sensational, ugly crime committed by. And I can say this because he was tried and convicted, and he's in prison right now, Scott Peterson, committed by Scott Peterson. And then this is interesting, and according to the blurb here, it was a New York Times bestseller. It's titled Blood Brother. Subtitle, 33 Reasons Why My Brother Scott Peterson is Guilty. This is his own sister saying this, okay? Interesting. And there's a lot of pictures in here. I haven't really even looked at this book yet. Full color, too. Maybe I'll scan a couple and put them on my Patreon. But the real, by the way, I'm not doing this just for the voyeuristic, wow and whoopee factor. I have a hypothesis. I'm not going to tell you it right now because I could be way off. And, I don't mind being appearing foolish, but I don't want to put anybody on a wrong trail. But I have a suspicion or a hypothesis I want to follow. I want to follow my gut here on this. And oftentimes it bears fruit. I had a suspicion about George Hodel, thanks to one of our moderators here. I don't know if she wants her name to be mentioned, turned me onto the writing of Steve Hodel. And that was a mother lode of connections that shed light on what we're doing here as part of the Osprey Nation Research Consortium, right? Okay, what else? True story? Okay. Maybe it's a conversation with someone in the other stream. Okay. People Lanier. Tyrone Sargent I learned a new word, people Lanier. I don't know what that means. But Biomancer lived in Modesto, so you know the terrain. Oh my, I shouldn't laugh. I mean, I'm very much familiar with Central California. I live in the northern tip of Central California. I've made that drive so many times, and I've stopped for gas and at too many greasy spoon restaurants typically en route to Los Angeles, right? I'm not going to be, to me, Modesto and Stockton are not destination areas. But anyway, I don't mean to put down that whole area, but Central California down that way, Fresno, Madera, well, that's kind of interesting. That's Highway 99 or I-5, if you will. Really interesting north-south corridors there that begs for poetic and artistic expression, I'm sure. Also, yeah, I told you there's Pope Mania for the last several years, and I just wanted to share with you another reference, a film that I think you still might be able to find on the streaming organization that ate the world, Netflix, in other words. That's where I saw it, and I think it was streamed. And it's the title is The Two Popes, that was released in 2019. I saw it as soon as it dropped, right? Just like, by the way, I saw that there's a new documentary on Britney Spears that dropped a couple days ago or very recent. I can't remember. And I watched the first 10 minutes or so. I'd already watched one movie, so I had to kind of move on. But I'm going to return to it. And if it's worth a comment or two, I'll get back to it. But anyway, the two popes caught my attention because it stars, playing the two popes, of course, hence the title, two of the top English-speaking actors in the world, right? Anthony Hopkins, right? And Jonathan Pryce. They're both British, but Hopkins is Welsh. You got, Hannibal Lecter. You probably know him better as Hannibal Lecter. He's playing the Pope. Talk about scope, talk about breadth, so far as acting skills. And he's one of the greats for sure. And then Jonathan Pryce, you might not know him as much. He deserves more featured roles like Anthony Hopkins. I think, for me, he's at that level. So the director knew that, and they cast these two legends of contemporary theater and film playing the two popes. And you know what that alludes to, right? For the first time in papal history, you had a pope say, "Hey, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go on I'm taking off. I'm going to let the throne of the throne of St. Peter, give it to somebody else, but I'm gone." And that's never been done before. And you don't have to be a Catholic to know this, but the only way the typical pope leaves office, the papal seat, is through death. They die, either through assassination or through natural causes, right? So it's highly unusual, and that's one of the reasons why Pope mania, a lot of talk was taking place amidst all the chaos, the political chaos, the economic, and you got the immigration situation in Europe and the U.S. and other parts of the world, and you know the problems. I don't have to enumerate for them. Is someone trolling Dr. Gardner? Is that the Martin Gardner, the guy at UC Davis, who I have never met, though? I was well aware of his career, too well aware of it. So well aware of it, the administration found out that I was looking into that whole complex way back 2009, 2010, 2008, based on research of Dr. Leonard Horowitz and Professor Peter Duesberg and people like that. And I said, wow, it's right in my institution. I'm going to go check it out. Anyway, that's another talk. Swan 432, is that a frequency? Yeah, we're going to get into some frequencies on this channel come, God willing, the new year. And I'm going to use the holidays in order to get that up and running. Tyrone says that Gardner doesn't seem. Is this the professor Gardner at UC Davis? If it is, I agree with you. You don't get into that position unless you're a player, and of course, and for me, right? I'm sorry, I'm off topic here, and if I go off topic, please don't beat me up. I promise you, I'll share at least a couple of my insights from Thomas Horn and Putnam. Better yet, buy the books yourself and don't rely on me. But a lot of the stuff that I read in the book has really shaped my own research result, which I will talk about before we end. God, it's already 3:20, and I'm just blah, blah, blah. But let me just finish this thought. Yeah, I don't think Martin or Professor Gardner, I can't remember his first name, is a good guy. He plays the kind of foolish, happy-go-lucky, backslapping, well-met fellow, and then there's the serious, white-coated scientist, right? The person that we are used to seeing in the movies. So they all have a different sort of casting there, and he cast as sort of like the happy-go-lucky guy who just happens to put this virus in his pocket, and he hasn't, a moment with the guard or I don't think it was called DHS back then, but the inspector, whoever it was that was manning the airports back then, and that to me sounds like a story. It sounds like pure bullshit, and the way he tells it, though, it's very convincing. He just sounds like one of the guys, right? But like I say, you don't get in that situation. Number one, at that level, but especially if you're dealing with the type of science that he specializes in, they're going to be on you like a cheap suit, or more likely an expensive suit. And so he's a player, whether he knows it or not. He might be being played, right, as well. And by the way, I checked him out a little bit more recently, what's going on, and they have at UC Davis, they have a junior faculty research program. That is, if you have a assistant professorship at UC Davis in the biology, he was in veterinary science, by the way, because as you know by now, that's where the action takes place, at the ag schools in the veterinary departments, right? And, you know the term zoonotic, right? Yeah, ag is big. It's not as sexy as IT or ICT, information computer technology, but ag, don't rule it out. But they have this program and it's his name. It has his name, Professor Martin Gardner. I can't remember the Gardner Fellowship for Junior Faculty. And I looked at the number and I said, wow, $50,000 to develop a grant. And what that is seed money to come up with a research proposal. Let's say something, hey, how can we use tobacco leaves to grow the next generation of XYZ. I'm not going to go any more specific. You've been following the great George Webb's reporting, so you can use your imagination to fill in the blanks there. So it's seed money to get one of the big money, which is the corporate money, who say, oh yeah, we see huge dividends for our stockholders in your new technology. So we're going to invest you, Dr. So-and-so, junior scientist, right? $50,000 is a lot to someone like me, but for them, it's a drop in the bucket. You can't even equip a lab for $50,000. And if you're a real hotshot, you will get a lab named after yourself. I bet over at UCDib there is a Martin laboratory. And I know this because, what was it, 10, 15 years ago, I used to go walking around outside my track, I walked all around the campus to check it out because, you got to do the boots on the ground. And I just saw all these bio labs and they all had the name of the professor on it, who was, which means they're owned lock and stock and barrel by company X, Y, or Z, the usual suspects, right? Monsanto and let's see, Dow, right? DOW, and any number, a lot of food, right? Food companies, quote unquote food that were involved, technologies. And by the way, that's when I found, in one of my walkabouts, that's when I found the California Primate Lab, because it's not on the campus map. I don't even know if it's on the, you can check it out for yourself on the Google map. But I swore that I would walk around the entire campus because I knew it was there. One of my students worked there, right? The best information that I got was from my students. So it wasn't like I got in trouble for what I was teaching the students. Yes, I did. Because I was teaching about all this complex. This is 10 years ago, at least, at minimum, maybe more like 15 years ago that I was on this trail. But it wasn't so much what I was teaching students. It was what the students were telling me, because they were doing internships, to polish up their resume so they can get into med school and all that. So they worked at the monkey lab and they said, oh yeah, you said something really interesting in your lecture. Hey, did you know that? And so I'd go and check it out on these leads. Leads can be found anywhere. You just got to listen. You just have to be kind of sensitized to it. So yeah, Garden, but we'll check him out some more. And I think he still is alive, and most likely he lives in Davis, California, if anybody's interested. They like to keep them there in the town where they can watch them, because if you retire there, you're still being watched. You're still being surveilled, and if you start slipping off the rails, you're going to be gone. Your name's going to be added to the list, a very long and growing list of dead scientists that I think was first started by Steve Quayle. I might be wrong if I'm giving the wrong information here. I think it's Steve Quayle that started it. Hulu pushing earlier Sopranos jobs. Is that in reference to the James Gandolfini-led series, The Sopranos? Yeah, maybe so. Jobs or Jobs? I thought he was dead. I thought The Sopranos was dead. Maybe not. We got more than the mafia, the New Jersey mob to be worried about. We've got the NATO mob and the DARPA mob that have us in their grip. I just yearn for the days of the old traditional mafia. These were men of honor. Pinkerton. Okay, this is more of a program. I'm sorry for reading that. Okay, let me continue then. Check out that movie if you want to. It's starring these great actors. And you know what? I'll have to admit, that movie almost had me. I got to learn about the early days of, he was a priest. He might have been bishop already, but he's Francis Bergoglio for Argentina, right? This is during the dirty war, so-called. And, it's just a lot of innocent as well as non-innocent, and political activists. Like now they started to be disappeared by the government, and the movie kind of explains the dilemma that he was in, Francis Bergoglio at that time before he became Pope, and they almost had me there. So I'll give you a critique there, but it's a very well done film, very well done, directed by Fernando Miralles. I don't know much about him beyond his name here, and written by Anthony McCartan. I assume he's an Irish writer, maybe Irish Catholic. I don't know, but he wrote a play and he wrote the screenplay. Very well done. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Petrus Romanos and some of the parts that I found interesting. And I'm not going to go through it because you can watch the interviews with Tom Horn and Cris Putnam yourself, or better yet, buy the book. But I will tell you that as a caveat, there's this as well as there's a glut of material on the Vatican, on YouTube, on websites, tons and tons of it. The Vatican is one of the favorite targets. I think it's mostly skewed in the area of targets, right? Attack, vituperation of the Vatican by people who know a little and really have checked out. Not that I'm the expert, right? But you can tell these are just what I call the repeaters. And these people come on to my YouTube and make a comment. Yeah, you got to check out Ryan Dawson, or somebody, some YouTube hack. I'm sorry, I'm just nothing against him. I've read his book, by the way, because if his name keeps cropping up, I better check it out. I was not impressed, but anyway, be that as may, I have nothing against him. However you want to make your fame and fortune, it's on you, right? We'll be lucky if any of us can be on YouTube in the future. So I want everybody to have at it. But so there's a glut there. Just for those of you who don't know anything about Dr. Tom Horn or Cris Putnam, he's not of that ilk. He's on YouTube, but he's not a YouTuber. All right. Most of you already know this, but I'm just in case, because I don't want you to just kind of lump these people. I don't like to be lumped in with your standard YouTuber, even though I'm on this really debased medium, and I can hardly wait to get off of it. I'm only one strike away from them putting me out of my misery, but it's not miserable because I want to be with you. But I'm not going to bemoan my loss if they get rid of me. That's how the Sopornos work, right? They're the IT gangster. They're so high on their own AOC micro doses, they really don't, care. They think they're doing God's work, right? These guys who grew up with playing games and have really no understanding of the world, except they work for Netflix and Google, and they're all going to lose their jobs. I heard recently there's been mass firings from the IT world. They're just getting rid because that's the process. Once the coolies lay the track, in the days of late 19th century, early mid to late 19th century California, right? All the Chinamen, right? Once the track is laid, all the Chinamen say, "Get out of here, you're gone," and so that you're the coolies, the intellectual coolie labor, the servitors of empires, I call them. And your world is about to end. And I'm not taking any pleasure in that. I'm just saying, join the Truth Squad. With your skills, my gosh, we could really hasten the progress back to recovering the Republic, instead of you sitting there with a joystick up your what and playing Second Life and World of Warcraft and thinking, yeah, well, I'm really hot. I'm really good on these massive multiplayer online games, right? So I'm really big. I'm big. All right, enough of that for that rant. Yes, today is desultory night. I said at the top of the show, you might have just joined. Today is off the wall night because I feel like I haven't been paying enough attention to you. That's not the total reason, but this is the type of topic that lends itself to communal fun and games, if you will, not CIA type fun and games, but exchange of ideas and insights. Because we're talking about God, we're talking about religion, we're talking about the afterlife, we're talking about transcendence, we're talking about attacks on humanity, right, from supernatural as well as earthly forces. How interesting, and that's better than any video game that I can think of. All right, but just know that what remains of today's talk, it's not a attack on the Vatican, whatever it is, because there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that does that already. And by the way, Tom Horn and Cris Putnam state that as well. They have a caveat. This is not a Pope bashing exercise. It's not a Pope Vatican bashing. It's not a Catholic bashing exercise either. That just said there's certain aspects about the church history that need scrutiny, because the misunderstanding and the misinterpretation and outright fabrications that come from different quarters could lead to our demise. Conversely, if we understand, that's why the research is so important. Conversely, if we understand it, we can hasten the process by which we can recover our humanity and our beloved republic, the United States of America, right? Not under the Great Seal, so-called, of America, but under the image of the founding, the religious dissidents that founded what became the American Republic. By the time you could talk about the Great Seal and the currency and the Federal Reserve, you know the story. That was the beginning of our current problems, right? So we distinguish the different parts of American Republican history, small r, not Republican Party. So know that it's not a screed against Roman Catholicism. In fact, and I hadn't read this book in a long time, I revisited it. There's a really good section, I think it might be the entire chapter, on the late Malachi Martin. I've heard him on radio a lot. There's great interviews on Malachi Martin from, I think, Coast to Coast when it was good, right? And he has a presence there, a great speaker and a brilliant individual, multilingual. When I say multilingual, I'm not talking about 3 or 4. I mean, after all, he was trained as a Jesuit. He's a smart guy. Jesuits are into scholarship. They're into historical knowledge. They're into, they were doing anthropology before there was anything called anthropology. They were doing sociology before there was anything called sociology. So I have nothing but respect for the whole emphasis on scholarship that's practiced by the Society of Jesus, of which Father Malachi Martin was one of the exemplars of that religious order. But he was relieved of responsibilities at the highest levels by the Pope, and he left the order, and he left, I don't know if he left the church. He might have remained a Roman Catholic, but he became this really important researcher and voice because he was public. This is before really the age of YouTube, right? He became this dissenting voice that was rare indeed. And a lot of what we were seeing and reading, all the repeaters that you see on YouTube, a lot of that has been plagiarized from Malachi Martin. But Horn reviews his career and is important, and he has nothing but good to say about Malachi Martin and Roman Catholicism and Jesuits. So I'm just mentioning that so you know that I'm not one of those, right, that are doing the work of who knows whatever. And I remain open to all religious traditions or pseudo-religious traditions. I want to know it all because I read these books not because I want to adopt their information chapter, line, and verse. I approach it as a historian, as a cultural forensics practitioner. I want to know it as a sociological, cultural, political phenomenon, the work of Cris Putnam and Thomas Horn. That's not to say that within the covers of the book, I do not subscribe to their findings. I subscribe to a lot of them. Some of them I don't know enough to comment on, like they do a whole cryptological examination of why we're going to see the last pope according to and I can't follow the mathematics. I can't follow the cryptology. They can't either. They admit it. The books, but they're looking at the books that have been trying to sift through some of these prophecies that are centuries old, that begin with Saint Malachi, or Malachi, if you prefer, the more Old Testament pronunciation. I'll call him Malachi. I think that's the Irish pronunciation. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he was sainted, right? And he had, through him, these manuscripts that made their way. And should say, and the authors acknowledge, and they spend a lot of time trying to go through. They're meticulous. I will say this is a scholarly book. The only thing that doesn't make it scholarly, it doesn't have an index, but it has all the citation, and they've done their work. They've gone to Yale Library. They've gotten texts that thought they were lost on that basis alone. They rediscovered a text that some earlier authors thought that it had been lost in a fire, and they found it in the Yale Library. I guess it's not in general circulation, but in special collections probably. So they have a lot of credibility so far as I'm concerned, and they're fairly well balanced, or exceptionally balanced, I'll say, as researchers. All the way around. So you're not going to be able to zing them on this. Oh, it's anti-papist, anti-Catholic. You're going to have to do the work if you're one of those people. I don't think you are, but if you're one of those people who just like to just brush off, oh, he's dirty, oh yeah, yeah, Michael Aquino, he's a Satanist, so we can't look. Yeah, they want you not to look at him, because then you won't know that he's one of the chief conceptualists for the handover of the U.S. Military to NATO, right? So keep an open mind. I know you know that, and I have to remind myself as well. The book of Malachi is important to me. Okay, are we talking about the Bible, or are we talking about Malachi Martin or Malachi Martin? Yeah, I'm reading a lot in the area. I like Revelations, and especially the books of the prophets. Always good. Always nourishing and informational, and for me, you're always reading it new with a new set of eyes based on your recent and past experiences. So let me state here that some historians believe that the prophecy of Saint Malachi, and that's 1094, 1148, those are his dates, right? That's a long time ago. They believe it's a forgery. All right. The authors, like I say, address that fact. So you're not going to be able to zing them on that. You're not going to be, but the point is that whether it's a forgery or not, the fact that it might be a forgery and that it might reveal the documented, established history of the Catholic Church, some segments within the Catholic Church, the scholars, whether Jesuit or not, for fabricating, falsifying information. And by the way, forget the Catholic Church. In the academic world, in the science world, falsification and science fraud is rife. It is beyond rife. It's, I won't say it's normal, but it is, you would be shocked the degree to which the numbers are fudged. So this is not strictly a Catholic deal. It's a deal amongst anybody who does knowledge production or creation. I mean, look at all the, in the creative arts, the number of people that rip off others, biters as they're called. You've seen the videos on the first one or two albums of Led Zeppelin. Most of the material ripped off by blues artists who got no money at all from America, from the US. There are many examples, right? So anyway, let me move on to this next one. And these are for me, they're a companion set. You got Petrus Romanus, which is a mind blower, and then it's followed up with this Exo-Vaticana. This is in 2013, just a couple years. 1 year later. Yeah, they must have wrote it as one volume, and they said, "Oh, we'll separate it." I'm just guessing. But it's very much consistent, and it complements this one, but it goes much further. As you can see by the subtitle, they talk about not just Petrus Romanus, as we alluded to here, but also Project Lucifer, initials, right? Lucifer. That's a Vatican operation. That's the observatory, and it's the well, you know who Lucifer, right? And you know what Luciferes is. That name came up recently, not so recently, but it came up again in our this sort of new bio-Luciferian attack. Hey, that's a good term, bio-Luciferianism. Okay, you heard it first here. You see how it works? So they have Project Lucifer. He talks about the observatory. And the rest of the subtitle is, and the Vatican's astonishing plan for the arrival of an alien savior, right? You've heard about Project Bluebeam, right? All kinds of literature on it. So in addition to all the swirl of information and disinformation and gossip and speculation about the popes and what that signals, whether it's the days of the seven cities, meaning Roma, of course, will go up in flames according to the prophecy of Saint Malachi or not. It's in the air. It's in our zeitgeist. But the same way with this idea that pretty soon, any moment, any day, there's going to be quote unquote disclosure, right? Disclosure. And, Dr. Stephen Greer and the same, not to discount his work. And I've read most of his, I think I have or downloaded, I think it was a pay, to review his most recent documentary, and I didn't discount anything. I'm just saying that there's a flood of information out there in books, and I've been following up on it myself, not that I'm an expert. And I will tell you that there's some very important insights that we need to understand, you and me, lay people, if we are to survive this slow motion bio-holocaust, right? Jeremiah Currents Ever. Is that the prophetic? It sounds like it. It's all fake space stuff. The Earth is flat. Yeah, I've heard that bullshit before too. But yeah, you got your flat earthers and you got your middle earthers and everything in between. But I listen to it. It's all good. If nothing else, it's entertaining, and it yields some information. For example, I never really thought this whole idea of panspermia could be a thing, but the more I read about it, and the more I find out that people like Nobel laureate Francis Crick were adherents to the panspermia. Panspermia means life on planet Earth was seeded from outer space, right? That's what he means by panspermia. Not him, but other people. And I was studying Crick, as you know, as being the good cop versus the John B. Watson bad cop, right? Cold Spring Harbor being the bad place, and Scripps Institute down in La Jolla being the good place, right? And as I've told you before, they're the same, one and the same. But he's a devotee, and maybe that should cause us to be skeptical of the whole panspermia thesis, if it not were for the work of Professor Wickramasinghe, who I talked about in another talk, Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe, who was trained, I think, at Cambridge. And Kamala Wickramasinghe, I don't know, that might be his daughter. And then there's Gensuke Tokoro, who's the third author on this. This is one of the shorter books by him, but he gets into the panspermia thesis, and he's written more extensively on it. And check one of my previous talks where I get into the contributions, the Crick, Wickramasinghe, and they know each other, and they've worked, and they've written together as well. So it is a thing within the science community itself, and to establish that, because you and me here, one of the most difficult hurdles that we have to cross, people who are independently minded and are not closed off, but are also not so gullible that we're going to follow the latest fad out there, right? One of the most difficult problems is that people think it's woo-woo, right? I don't really care. I mean, I used to teach this stuff at the University of California, Davis, and let the chips fall where they may. And students found it fascinating. They loved it. They ate it up. Because there's a strict division on what constitutes real knowledge, academic knowledge, and woo-woo, right? So I feel you, I understand that, but I didn't let that stop me. So but for those of the skeptics here, there's not very many, but out there, if you think this is woo-woo, you can go to this book, Exo-Vaticana, and go to page 197, where Horn and Putnam talk about. Well, in this book, by the way, Cris Putnam gets first. So he's the principal author, Cris Putnam, and Horn gets the second attribution here. But there's a section called Fermi's Paradox, as in Enrico Fermi. You know him as a world-class physicist, right? Manhattan Project. I don't have to explain it to you. But it talks about how such physicists, including Fermi, including Emil Konopinski, Edward Teller, one of my colleagues at the University of California, Davis. He was there before me, but we both hold the same title, Professor Emeritus, right? It's kind of strange. It's bizarre. And Herbert York, they were sitting around, one of their bull sessions, right? And this is in 1950, and they were commenting on this cartooner, the New Yorker. This is the 50s, where the beginning of aliens and all, the day the earth stood still, and space creatures and all. This is where the UFO phenomenon came into the popular culture, and they took it seriously. And then Fermi sat down and did some calculations right on the spot. I don't know how many days it took him, but he said, "Hey, given the possibilities of life being off-planet life being out there in the universe and the galaxies, it's amazing that it's improbable that we human beings, the Earth, have not been visited, except we don't really have any concrete proof." So the great Enrico Fermi himself said that, based on his own calculations, that it's probable. It hasn't been proven yet. And personally, I really don't care if it's proven or not. And I don't care if the government or any other body, the Vatican, whoever else, says, "Oh yeah, we know all about it." I mean, who are they and why do we care? We can come up with our own sites independent of the Air Force or the Navy's big on this, right? Yeah, back in 1950, a group of brilliant scientists working at Los Alamos National Laboratories engaged in a lunchroom conversation about flying saucers. The conversing colleagues included physicists Enrico Fermi, Emil Kopeninski, Edward Teller, and Herbert York. The men discussed a recent UFO flap, and this might be Area 51, he's alluding to, and Alan Dunn cartoon facetiously blaming the disappearance of New York City trash cans on extraterrestrial kleptomaniacs. Ha ha ha, aren't those people funny? So, ridicule is a big deterrent for a lot of people. They don't want to risk being humiliated or embarrassed about it. And if you're one of those people, try to get over that as soon as possible, because that might save your life. For me, it doesn't matter. As I told you before, in junior high school, I was voted class clown. So I kept that ability throughout my entire professional career, and didn't really care, right? I mean, I even wrote a monologue from a person who I don't want to, I wrote a monologue, an opening monologue from someone that in the chat room here, and maybe he'll use it. I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. I had a fun time writing it, like Johnny Carson's staff writer. Anyway, this book also, getting back to Exo-Vaticana, has a whole section on panspermia. Okay? So it's coming from all these different directions, and it's incumbent upon us to check it out. Because as we know, the panspermia thesis, right, to me is getting, there's all these, the data is getting stronger and stronger. And I found this book recently, and maybe I'll critique it. I'd like to have him on as a live guest, so we could all ask him questions. His name's Professor Jason Riza Giorgiani. He comes from academia. Yeah, he's got a PhD. He's got an MA and his BA degrees from New York University, PhD from State University of New York. And he has an academic appointment. I can't remember where. It's not listed here, but he's a full-time, I think, tenure track professor. And man, he's written several incredible books in a very short time span. And this was something that was because I read his earlier book that's published by a house that does a lot of I guess we call it neo-nationalist, right-wing type stuff. Actos Press. I thought it was interesting. And I read his first theoretical book. I think it's probably his doctoral dissertation that was, redone for more popular consumption. He's a philosopher by training. So when this book dropped, I thought, wow, that's that's a lot of breadth. And maybe this is his post tenure book, because if you try to put this out when you're going up promotion, tenure and promotion, they're going to shoot you down in most places. Um, Even though they might secretly read this stuff and enjoy it and like it, they're really susceptible to of ridicule, because they take themselves really seriously. That's one of the dangers they present. They take themselves real seriously. So let's poke fun of them, like in opening monologues, for example. Um, and this one's called Closer Encounters by Professor Jason Riza Giorgiani. And he talks about all these same issues as Horn, as not all of them, but there's a lot of complementary research there that Professor Giorgiani treats, along with the whole history of alternative research. So it's beginning. He's young, uh, Dr. Giorgiani. He's very young. So that tells me that the academic institutions themselves are beginning generationally now. There's a generational turnover where the type of research that was once considered fringe or woo-woo is going to be the orthodox scholarship of tomorrow, right? And that's one of the reasons, by the way, I think, is why the people who don't want to see that happen, this type of information leak into the university, that's why they've tried to pre-destroy it. They've tried to salt the fields with LGBTQ non-research, because it's bogus, and critical race theory, so-called, because it's bogus, and drug all the faculty with antidepressants, and fill the faculty office with therapists, psychotherapists, like was happening at my institution, and also clamp down on free inquiry. And you don't hear any professors, you don't hear law professors talking about the constitutional issues that our current crisis is bringing up. Not a peep. The closest we come to Alan Dershowitz, and he's long retired, and that recent book that he came up with is a piece of garbage. So it's just old rehashed editorials that one of his assistants probably wrote for him to the New York Times. Your medical doctors are coming to the fore finally, and they're being silenced as well. So I see some good signs amidst the oppression, the official oppression that we're experiencing here. Yep, pharmakia. Yeah, I guess you're giving it the Greek spelling or the unconventional. Yeah, they will have to go. They'll have to either go out of business or reevaluate what they're doing with their model. It's going to change. It's got to change, because you know what? It's not us, the people who are the critics of them, that are going to put them out of business. They're going to put each other out of business. They're going to put themselves out of business, because their model, business and metaphysical model, is not sustainable, and they know it. They're panicking. Just hope they can come to their senses and do something about it before it's too late. Del Bigtree is not going to do it. Del Big Mouth. He's just, if anything, he's sucking oxygen off. And he's already talking up. The horse has already left the barn, and he's talking about, oh yeah, you got to close the gate. And I like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and what he's doing over there. But the people are still talking about the science. Oh, how can they believe in this when there's this? Well, it's too late. We're beyond that discussion, and we need to come up with new ways of looking at old problems, such as directed panspermia. And I'll conclude with this, right? And this is I think I've never heard this hypothesis. I'm just suggesting it. So maybe someone may want to pursue this on your own, or spread it around so it becomes part of the zeitgeist. I don't need to take credit for it. But maybe some, laboratory scientists will pick up on this because of something someone said or wrote or tweeted out, right? That's my hope. That's my message in the bottle technique or strategy. But we know about panspermia, right? We have people like Nobel laureate Francis Crick and others, by the way, subscribe to it. And this is the idea that extraterrestrial life was seeded from other systems, right? Outside of our own system, solar system. And on them had bacteria and viruses. They came here. And we know that our viral makeup genetically, there's a lot of unique viral genetics in us, Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens. So here's the original insight that I have for you and why the seeming woo-woo can make the difference between life and death, survival, or extermination as a species, human species, as well as the animal species, because we know they're attacking the large animals. And as I predicted months ago, they're going to start attacking the family pets so that everywhere you are, it'll be a toxic environment. You can't even trust Fido anymore. Fido might give you the dread whatever. So here's the kicker. What if, and this is pure speculation on my part, and by the way, that's how great discoveries come. They start out with speculation, then you beef it up to a hypothesis, then this is a scientific method, then you test the hypothesis, right? You try to falsify it or confirm it, and you subject it to rigorous empirical tests. So I can speculate, you can speculate, anybody can speculate, but you have to abide by the scientific method in order for it to gain currency within the establishment that is in a position to do something about it, right? And I happen to subscribe to it. I happen to think that just having an opinion is not enough, right? As the saying goes, Madam, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your facts. So here's my insight. Panspermia. Okay, let's say that's true. And let's say that viruses are coming from other galaxies and they have seeded different life forms, right? And that's why they can grow so quickly. According to the classical Darwinian scheme, would take, thousands of years for octopus or octopi to develop. But what if the octopi, what came as a passenger, so to speak, on one of these meteorites, right? Let's call them, missiles from outer space. Let's call them viruses from outer space. Let's make fun of ourselves. Okay, so what if the Navy or the military, as soon as one of these craters hit, or one of these satellites, projectiles hit Earth, right? They gather the material, they take it away and they examine it. But what if one of those passengers, one of those viruses from another system was weaponized? What if they were able to put that alien DNA, that message, into the human being or to the animal life? How about that? That just puts another whole dimension into our current inquiry that's almost exclusively focused on the V's, right? V, not for victory, but V for you know what, right? I think that's a hypothesis that needs serious attention. And if there's any agency out there that wants to give me $50,000 for seed money so I can build it up into a laboratory protocol and research this hypothesis, I'll be glad to listen to your offers. I don't think that's going to happen because I'm not legitimate. I think I am. The people who evaluate me, like at the University of California, Davis, you're the ones who are the clowns. All that time I was there for 21 years. You thought I was the clown, but you know what? This clown clowned you. I clowned you for so long, and you didn't take me seriously. You thought I was talking about, Endgame and Dr. Lone and all the AIDS from outer space and the New World Order. You thought it was so funny. Right? You people, you faculty over in so-called technocultural studies, what a bunch of clowns you were. I gave my talk to you, and as soon as I got up, I packed my computer, I walked out, the whole lecture hall erupted in laughter at me. But guess what? I clowned you. I clowned you good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, I'm having too much fun here. I got to leave it at that. I'll see you in another hour. I'm going to get myself some Assam black tea, which it's not a health solution, but I'm saying Assam, black tea. Check it out. All right. Thank you very much. I hope you have as much fun today as I did. I'll see you in an hour. Bye.